everyone, I'm Christina. If you're here, you're probably in my group on Facebook, which I put the link down here, called Giselle's Garden. And everyone has been asking me to make a video teaching them how to sew. Well, everyone's skill sets are going to be so different, and there's going to be people who literally have never touched anything to do with sewing ever. So I'm going to start at the very, very beginning. And the very, very beginning is preparing to sew. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know everything, because I don't. But I'm going to try and help you the best that I can. So the first video we're going to do is going to be about going and getting your machine and getting your fabric and getting things like notions and elastics and stuff. That's going to be the first how-to video. This first video is just preparing to go do that. So before you can go to the store, you need to know which pattern you're going to use. I have a few pattern makers that I like. I personally prefer PDF patterns. PDF patterns are patterns created by different designers online that are they're much easier to understand and follow than paper patterns. And just so we're all clear, this is a paper pattern. This is an old school pattern you can get, and the pattern is made from tissue paper, and it rips and it sucks, and it's like trying to read how to build a spaceship, trying to figure out the instructions. I really don't like paper patterns. Some people love them. Some people think they're the easiest things in the world, and awesome, great for you, but I don't, and so we're going to stick with PDF patterns since this is my how-to video. I have a couple of PDF pattern makers that I really, really like. One is Violet Field Threads, and they actually just started selling their paper patterns in Joann's. I have not picked one up yet to compare it to see if it's exactly like their PDF patterns or not, so I still suggest getting them online. Another pattern maker I like is Made for Mermaids. There's also Create Kids Couture, and then there's Rabbit Rabbit. For the purposes of our first project being super easy, we're going to start with a child's dress, and we're going to do a pattern from Rabbit Rabbit called the Hummingbird. So I'm going to go ahead and put the link down here on this video, and you can go get it, and I'll wait. Make sure you download the one that is for your size that you're trying to make. And if you don't have a little girl who could, benefit from this dress, find a friend that has one, or, make one and donate it to the children's hospital. I don't care, but that's what we're making first, so go get it. Okay, so now you have your hummingbird pattern. So go ahead and save that into a folder that you're going to remember. Mine is sewing patterns. I know it's totally original. You can go ahead and steal it if you want. Totally fine with that. So go ahead and open your pattern up. You're going to see that the first page is an adorable little girl wearing the dress. So go ahead and go to the second page. The second page is your sizing chart. This is where we're going to find all that information I was talking about on how much fabric you're going to need when you go to the store, if you need elastic, if you need buttons, if you need lace, all that stuff is going to be right here. So go ahead and look at the sizing chart. That sizing chart is very important, because just because your daughter is a size 5 at Target doesn't mean she's going to be a size 5 in this pattern. Case in point, I'm looking at the sizing chart right now, and Giselle, who is normally a size 5 in most patterns and at Target, is a size 6 in this pattern. So if I was not paying attention and I just wrote her measurements and just didn't deal with it, I would have made her a size 5 and it would have been too small. So to measure your child, you're going to need a measuring tape. You can get this at Hobby Lobby, most craft stores that have sewing things are going to have measuring tape like this. You don't want to use the measuring tape from your husband's toolbox. You need the soft, flexible kind. There are lots of tutorials on how to measure someone properly on YouTube, but it's kind of pretty self-explanatory. For the chest, you measure across the chest. For the waist, you measure across the waist. For the hips, you measure across the hips. For us as adults, our measurements are going to be more curvy, whereas children typically are more of a straight line. So you'll see on the sizing chart that most of the measurements are between an inch or two of each other. So go ahead and find the size that you're going to need. I also want you to go ahead and read the stuff it says on the left. All that stuff's very important. One of the things it says, for instance, is to pre-wash your fabric. I don't pre-wash my fabric. I'd like to say there's some sort of awesome reason for it, but it's mostly because I'm lazy, and I really like how crisp and clean it is when, or not clean, because I guess it's dirty, but I like how crisp it is whenever I'm sewing. The reason they tell you to do that is because obviously if you're using 100% cotton and you make a dress and then you wash it in hot water and then you dry it in hot air, it's going to shrink. So I always wash Giselle's dresses on cold, and I usually hang them to dry anyway, and I just steam them nice, or I iron them. I haven't really ever had a problem with shrinkage by not washing my fabric, but having said that, that's a personal choice. It's going to be up to you. In the beginning, I did wash everything because I was terrified of shrinkage, but now I just don't care. So that's up to you. It also has some other things that you'll need on there. Notions, that's just a fancy word for the things that you need to go along with sewing that's other than fabric. So the thread and, you know, scissors and your sewing machine and buttons and all that kind of stuff. So now you're going to look at your fabric requirements. This is what we need to go to the store for our next video. We need to know how much fabric we need for our dress. So I'm making a size 6. So I wrote down size 6 hummingbird. So you go ahead and you find your size on the left. Go all the way over to where it says something special. Now, you'll see there's 3 dress options on this pattern. The everyday dress is just a dress that's more A-line. As the dresses go up on this pattern, they get more full in the skirts. So I typically just go straight to something special, because if I'm going to make a dress, I want it to be fun and twirly and full. That's just my personal preference, and since you're sewing along with me, you gotta do what I'm doing. So go ahead and go over to something special. Find your size, go down, and see how much you need for the bodice and the straps. You'll notice underneath the yardage for the bodice and the straps, it says that you need lining. I typically just make my lining the same fabric on my bodices. I make the lining and the bodice just because, like I said, I am going to go everything like you don't know what I'm talking about. So the bodice on a dress is the top part. This is the bodice and also my boobs. So, just kidding, I'm kind of weird, sorry. That's what you're going to need. So you can just go ahead, it says to get a small piece. For the purposes of this, you might end up with a little extra fabric. I want you to just go ahead and double what it says. And since all of them are the same, just go ahead and get a ½ yard. So go ahead and write that down. Bodice, and make sure when you write it down, you write down what that ½ yard is for. So you want to write down bodice and straps is a ½ yard. So write that down. I'll wait. My tea is getting really cold because this is like take 37. Because I keep doing weird things and I have to start over. Anyway, then you're going to go ahead and skip the base skirt. I really don't want to get complicated here, but the base skirt is going to be like a lining, and we're going to skip a lining. We're just going to do just a dress. No lining, no fancy stuff. We want to get you started with something easy And I didn't want to do a pillowcase, so this is what we're doing. So go ahead and go to the top skirt and write down how much yards you need for the top skirt. Make sure you follow your sizing on the left-hand side of the chart. And then the last thing that is on this list is elastic. And you'll see above it, it says 1 inch elastic. That's the size of the elastic, the width of it. So it's going to be like that big. And then underneath that, those are in inches, not yards. Make sure you write down inches. You do not need to get almost between 9 and 12 yards of fabric or of elastic. That would be insane. So just write down how much elastic you need and then put inches next to it. We're going to go back to that notions section because that's important to know when you go to the store as well. And I'm trying to see if there's anything spectacularly interesting on there that we don't know already, but I don't see anything. Okay. For this dress, I usually like to add some lace, but again, for the purposes of keeping this as simple as possible, we're not going to do that for this first one. Also, the reason you want to separate your fabric yardage instead of just combining it all together and saying, oh, well, this plus this equals this, and I can just write that down. No, because let's say you want to make your straps a different color, and you want to make your bodice a different color, and you want to make your skirt a different color. You need to know exactly how much fabric you need of those pieces. So if you combine everything, then you won't know. And you might think that's crazy, but I did that in the beginning. I would be like, oh, you know, 0.25 yards, okay, that plus 0.75, that's just 1 yard. I don't need to write this stuff down, I'll just get a yard. And then I get to the store, I'm like, oh man, I wanted to make the straps this color, and I can't remember how much of that 1 yard was for the straps. So make sure you write it down. Other than that, I think we'll be ready to go. We're going to want to print the actual pattern pieces for this pattern. So go ahead and make sure before we go to the store that you have printer ink. Normally I would suggest just getting black ink, but a lot of these patterns are color coded to make it a lot easier for you when you're cutting them out. So I definitely suggest having color ink in your printer. But if you don't, it's not a huge deal. You can figure it out because typically the lines are either thicker or they're dotted. But for this one, it's pretty color coded. So make sure you have color ink. And looks like that's everything we need to know before we go to the store. Yay! So our next video, class lesson 102, is going to be how to go to the store to get everything you need to sew. I'm talking sewing machine, I'm talking scissors, thread, the fabric that we just wrote down, and the best part is I'm going to make my husband do it, because not only does he hate Joanne, so it's going to just be so much fun for me, but he really doesn't know anything about sewing, so he's the perfect person to use to make sure that I'm explaining everything, because if he has any questions, I'll know that I'm not being thorough enough. So I will see you in video 2.